Ryan's office revenge.
Lisa's going to do great things as our new regional project coordinator. My name is Wade Henderson. I'm 47. Gary Walsh just handed 6 years of my work to his 24-year-old daughter, who'd been here 4 months. This was happening. Conference room smelled like old blueprints and broken promises. Everyone clapped. I clapped too. Had to. Lisa smiled like she'd earned something. Fresh Texas A&M construction management degree. 0 field experience. Nothing. Gary stood there grinning at his daughter, his little princess. Everyone knew it. Nobody talked about it. Wade's been invaluable, getting Lisa up to speed. Gary said like that made it better. Like 6 years of perfect safety records and government contract completions was just training for his kid. I nodded, happy to help. Meeting ended. People shook Lisa's hand. I gathered my hard hat and clipboard, moved slow. My head was clear now. Like when you're laying concrete and suddenly realize the forms have been shifting under you for months. Gary caught my arm. Wade, stick around. We stood alone. He loosened his tie, tried to look sorry. Gary was 55, soft gut, thinning hair combed over to hide the bald spots. Got his job when his father-in-law retired from the company board. Same thing he just pulled with Lisa. I know this might surprise you, he said. But Lisa brings fresh perspectives to the table. Sure, you understand, right? Nothing personal. I looked at him. I understand perfectly. He relaxed. Good. You're valuable, Wade. Valuable. Not valuable enough for the promotion. Valuable enough to train his daughter. I adjusted my father's old hard hat in my hands. The worn leather headband had molded to his shape over 30 years ago. Same problems, different job site. Started at Titan Construction April 2018, right after my divorce finalized. Needed fresh start. Government construction projects seemed solid, something to build on. Honest work that paid $72,000 and let me sleep at night. Gary hired me himself, shook my hand, said they needed someone with my experience managing federal building projects. I'd spent 15 years at my previous company before budget cuts killed my position. At 47, starting over felt like demolishing a house and starting from scratch. But Gary made it sound good. We're growing fast, he said during interview. Lots of room for advancement for the right people. I became the right guy. Worked weekends when material deliveries were late. Stayed late when inspectors had concerns, managed safety protocols across 5 federal building projects. Built relationships with government contract officers from Dallas to Houston. Performance reviews were perfect. Gary always smiled. Always promised bigger things. Your management material, Wade. Just be patient. Patient. I was good at being patient. My daughter Chloe visited every other weekend. She was 17, smart enough to see when her dad looked tired. Sometimes she'd find me at kitchen table Sunday mornings, laptop open, reviewing safety reports. Dad, it's the weekend. Just catching up. Building something good here. She'd roll her eyes, but she understood. Her mom remarried a banker who worked reasonable hours and coached soccer. I was the dad who worked too much but sent college fund money on time. Never missed school events. Had those monthly alimony payments reminding me why this job had to work out. When I told Chloe about the possible promotion, she got excited. My dad's going to be regional coordinator, she told her friends. Now I'd have to explain why that wasn't happening. First problem showed up 7 months ago. Gary mentioned his daughter might join the company. Smart girl, just graduated Texas A&M, construction management degree. I nodded, thought nothing of it. Companies hire graduates all the time, start them entry level, let them learn from ground up. But Lisa didn't start at the bottom, started in the office next to Gary's with title junior project coordinator and salary I could only guess at. Gary introduced her around like visiting royalty. Lisa's going to observe our processes, learn how we do things. Lisa observed by sitting in my client calls, taking notes while I explained OSHA requirements. Asked questions that showed she didn't understand the basics of construction safety, but she was eager and polite, said yes sir and thank you, like her mother raised her right. I trained her because that's what you do. Help the new person, even when new person's last name is Walsh. Even when her daddy signs your checks. Even when you start to suspect where this is heading, I knew for sure 4 weeks ago. Stayed late finishing monthly safety compliance reports, going through incident documentation, contractor certifications. Office was empty except cleaning crew. Headed to break room for coffee when I heard voices from Gary's office. Door was cracked open. The hallway carried sound better than people realized. The board's going to ask questions, Gary was saying. Lisa's only been here 3 months. Deeper voice, older. Carl Mason from corporate. You said Wade was ready for promotion. Wade's solid, but Lisa's family and she's got the degree. Board likes degrees. What about Wade's experience? Gary laughed. Not mean, not kind either. Wade's a good worker, reliable, but he's not executive material. He'll keep doing what he's doing. Make good money. Everything works out. I stood in that hallway 45 seconds listening to them plan my future. Lisa would get Henderson's old position, the same position I'd been preparing for since 2018. I'd train her, support her, pretend to be grateful. Wade won't cause problems, Gary continued. He's got a daughter, alimony payments. He needs this job. He'll fall in line like I was some horse being broken to saddle, like 6 years of loyalty had earned me the right to be grateful for scraps. I walked away quiet, didn't want them to hear my footsteps, went back to my desk, saved my work, left building, drove home in complete silence. My father died when I was 25, Agent Orange complications from Vietnam. Took 8 years to kill him after he came home. Government said, sorry, here's a flag and some benefits. Dad always said the system would abandon you if you let it. Never let them make you expendable, son. Next morning, I came to work different, watched Lisa closer. Noticed how Gary included her in executive meetings while keeping me focused on day-to-day safety inspections. Saw how other managers started deferring to Lisa on decisions that should have been mine. 3 weeks later, sitting in that conference room, watching Lisa accept congratulations for a job she hadn't earned, something broke inside me. Not anger, not sadness, just clarity. Gary thought I needed this job, thought I'd shut up because I had bills and a daughter and monthly alimony checks. He was wrong about everything. But what Gary didn't know was just how much his little empire was about to crack. The real problem started 2 weeks after Lisa's promotion. We were managing the renovation of the federal courthouse downtown. Big contract, tight deadlines, zero tolerance for safety violations. Lisa was handling materials coordination. Tuesday morning, she approved delivery of steel reinforcement bars without checking certifications. Wednesday, our crew started installation. I was doing routine inspection when I noticed the rebar specifications didn't match blueprints. Wrong grade steel would compromise load requirements if we continued. I found Lisa in the trailer reviewing schedules on her laptop. Lisa, we've got a problem with the rebar delivery. She looked up, confused. What kind of problem? Wrong grade steel. These bars won't support the load requirements for federal construction standards, but the supplier said they were equivalent. Equivalent isn't certified. We need to stop work and get proper materials. Lisa's face went red. Wade, stopping work costs money. Can't we just document it and move forward? This was the moment. The crack that would bring everything down? Not if you want to keep people safe. Lisa stood up, tried to sound authoritative. I'm the coordinator on this project. I'm making the call to continue. And I'm the senior manager responsible for safety compliance. Work stops until we get proper materials. She stared at me for 10 seconds, then pulled out her phone. Dad, I need you down at the courthouse site. Gary showed up 20 minutes later. What's this about stopping work? I explained the materials issue. Gary listened, then looked at the rebar markings scattered around the site. Wade, the supplier says these are equivalent grade. That's good enough. Not for federal construction. OSHA requires exact specifications. OSHA doesn't need to know about supplier variations. We document equivalent materials and move forward. I stared at Gary. You want me to falsify materials documentation. I want you to be reasonable. One day delay costs us $15,000 in penalties. Wrong materials cost us nothing if nobody makes it an issue. People's safety isn't negotiable, Gary. Neither is this contract. We're already behind schedule. Lisa made a judgment call, support it or find another job. Gary walked away. Lisa avoided eye contact. I called the crew together, told them to secure the site and go home early. Work would resume when proper materials arrived. Thursday morning, proper grade rebar was delivered. Cost the company $8,000 extra and pushed our timeline back 2 days. Gary was pissed. Lisa was embarrassed. I documented everything in the daily safety report. Thursday afternoon, our crew was pouring concrete when it happened. Miguel Santos, 34 years old, father of 3, was positioning the new rebar when a temporary support gave way. The replacement steel was heavier than original specifications. Miguel fell 12 feet onto concrete forms, broke his left leg, dislocated shoulder. I was first on scene. Miguel was conscious but in significant pain. I called 911 then started documentation, standard procedure for workplace accidents. By the time paramedics arrived, Gary was there too. What happened? Gary asked, temporary support failure. Miguel was positioning rebar when the structure shifted under the extra weight. Gary looked at the scattered materials around the accident site. His face went pale when he realized what this meant. If we'd used Lisa's original wrong-grade steel, the lighter weight might have prevented the support failure. But the proper materials created load stress the temporary supports couldn't handle. He pulled me aside while paramedics loaded Miguel into the ambulance. Wade, we need to talk. Back in the trailer, Gary closed the door. This accident is going to trigger an OSHA investigation. That's standard procedure. Not if we handle it right, Miguel slipped. Simple fall. No equipment failure, no materials issues. I stared at Gary. You want me to falsify the accident report? I want you to be smart about this. Miguel's going to be fine. Workers' comp covers everything. But if OSHA finds materials problems, we lose the federal contract. Company goes under. Everyone loses jobs, including Miguel's job when he comes back. That's not our problem. Miguel should have been more careful around heavy materials. The materials were proper grade. Gary, Lisa's original choice would have been wrong and dangerous. Lisa made a judgment call based on supplier recommendations. The accident happened because you insisted on overweight steel. Gary leaned back in his chair. Wade, I'm going to ask you one more time. Are you going to be a team player here? I adjusted my father's hard hat on the desk between us. The leather was worn smooth where his hands had gripped it for 30 years. Building America, one project at a time, never compromising on safety. I'm going to file the accurate report, Gary. Standard procedure. That's a mistake, Wade. A big mistake, maybe. But it's the right mistake to make. Gary's expression hardened. You do this and you're done here. I'll make sure you never work construction in Texas again. Then I guess I better make it count. That weekend, I didn't just file the OSHA report. I documented everything. Lisa's approval of wrong-grade materials, Gary's pressure to falsify accident documentation, the pattern of nepotism that put an unqualified person in charge of safety decisions, but I also started digging deeper. Something about the company finances didn't add up. Employee pension contributions were listed as current, but the quarterly statements seemed off. I'd been contributing to that pension for 6 years, wanted to make sure my money was actually there. Took me 3 weeks to find it. Gary had been skimming from the employee pension fund. Small amounts over 2 years, but it added up to $180,000. He'd been using company losses to cover missing pension contributions. When federal contracts stopped coming, he'd have no way to replace the money. Monday morning, I submitted 3 reports: OSHA complaint about materials violations and cover-up attempts, Department of Labor complaint about pension fund irregularities, and a detailed summary to the Dallas Morning News business reporter who specialized in government contract fraud. I also made some phone calls. Word travels fast in construction, and people were already hearing about changes at Titan. Some were concerned about project continuity. Others were curious about new opportunities. Neil Cooper from Apex Construction called me directly. Wade, I've been following your situation through industry contacts. We need someone with your integrity managing our government contracts division. That's generous, Neil, but I'm still employed at Titan, for now. But when you're ready to discuss opportunities, we should talk. Your reputation for safety and quality work speaks for itself. I appreciate that. Those federal relationships you've built over 6 years, those are valuable assets. The right company would recognize that value. The offer was clear without being explicit. When I was ready to leave Titan, Apex would be ready to hire me, with a significant raise and full authority over safety protocols. Tuesday morning, Gary called me into his office. He looked like he hadn't slept. Wade, I heard you've been making phone calls, just following proper channels. You have any idea what you've done? Built a solid case with proper documentation. Gary stood up, paced behind his desk. This is going to destroy the company, destroy families. People are going to lose jobs. People like Miguel Santos. Miguel's situation was unfortunate, but what you're doing is vindictive. What I'm doing is protecting workers from dangerous management decisions. You're destroying everything over one accident. I'm preventing future accidents by removing incompetent leadership. Gary sat back down, tried a different approach. Wade, we can work this out. Lisa was learning. She'll do better. Lisa's not qualified for the position. She never was. She's family. That's the problem, Gary. You put family loyalty ahead of worker safety? Lisa's a good kid. Smart. She just needs time. Time that Miguel Santos didn't have when he hit that concrete. Gary's face went red. That accident wasn't Lisa's fault. You're the one who insisted on the heavier steel. The heavier steel that met federal specifications. Lisa approved substandard materials that would have failed inspection. The investigation is going to show temporary support failure, equipment malfunction, nothing to do with materials or management decisions. The investigation is going to show a pattern of safety violations and document falsification attempts, plus some interesting discoveries about employee pension funds. Gary went pale. What are you talking about? I think you know exactly what I'm talking about. I spent the next week documenting everything while OSHA conducted their investigation. They were thorough, interviewed the entire crew, examined materials certifications, reviewed safety protocols, found multiple violations, including Gary's attempt to have me falsify accident reports. The Department of Labor moved faster on the pension fraud. Financial crimes involving employee retirement funds get priority attention. They brought forensic accountants who found Gary's skimming operation within 2 weeks. 18,000 missing from employee pension contributions over 24 months. Gary had been covering it with inflated project costs and delayed payments to subcontractors. When federal contracts started drying up, he couldn't maintain the shell game. The media story broke on a Friday. Nepotism and fraud plague major Texas construction firm. The article detailed how Gary Walsh promoted his unqualified daughter to a safety-critical position, leading to worker injuries and attempted cover-ups. It mentioned the pension fund theft and Gary's threats against whistleblowing employees. By Monday morning, I had 6 job offers. Neil Cooper called me personally. Wade, after reading about your situation, we'd like to make a formal offer. Regional Operations Director, $95,000 annually. Full authority over safety protocols and materials certification. That's a significant increase, Neil. We value integrity. Your willingness to stand up for worker safety, even at personal cost, is exactly what we need. Plus, we'd like you to bring your government relationships with you. That's completely ethical standard industry practice. Clients follow account managers they trust, especially in reputation-based businesses like federal contracting. I hadn't signed a non-compete agreement, and the government officers I'd worked with were free to choose their contractors. Gary called me the day I gave notice. Wade, don't do this. Those contracts belong to Titan. Those relationships belong to me, Gary. I built them over 6 years of professional service. You take them and we'll sue you. For what? Doing good work and maintaining professional standards. The silence stretched for 30 seconds. Lisa's been asking about you, Gary said finally. She feels terrible about everything. Lisa's a good kid who got thrown into a situation beyond her capabilities. That's not her fault. She wants to apologize. She doesn't owe me an apology. You do. More silence. I'm sorry it came to this. Wade, no, you're not. You're sorry you got caught. Gary hung up. The OSHA investigation concluded 6 weeks later. They found materials violations, safety protocol failures, and evidence of document falsification attempts. Titan Construction faced $250,000 in fines and 18-month suspension from federal contract bidding. The Department of Labor investigation moved to criminal charges. Financial fraud involving employee pensions carries federal penalties. Gary faced 5 years prison time and full restitution requirements. Meanwhile, I was settling into my new office at Apex Construction. Better pay, better benefits, and most importantly, full authority to maintain safety standards without interference from unqualified management. 3 former Titan clients followed me to Apex within the first month. Deanna Foster, who managed the federal courthouse project, specifically requested me as project manager for 2 upcoming government buildings. Wade, Diana said during our transition meeting, after what happened with Miguel Santos, we need contractors who prioritize safety over shortcuts. Your handling of that materials issue probably prevented worse accidents. That's the job, Diana. Protecting the people who do the work. Not everyone sees it that way. Gary Walsh called me last week asking for another chance on federal contracts. I told him we'd lost confidence in Titan's safety management. Good call. Your documentation of the materials violations and accident response gave us everything we needed to justify the contractor change. Professional, thorough, exactly what we expect from our project managers. The real vindication came 8 months later. I was reviewing safety protocols for our newest federal contract when Neil walked into my office with a business magazine. "Wade, you need to see this." The headline read, "Titan Construction Collapses Amid Fraud Scandal." The article detailed how the company had lost 7 major federal contracts after the OSHA violations and fraud conviction. Revenue was down 84%. The board had voted to liquidate assets and close operations permanently. Gary Walsh received 3 years federal prison for pension fraud and 2 years for document falsification attempts. The sentences would run concurrently. He'd also pay full restitution of $18,000 plus penalties to affected employees. Lisa Walsh had resigned after 6 weeks of trying to manage projects beyond her capabilities. She'd returned to graduate school for advanced construction management training. Here's the interesting part, Neil continued. 4 former Titan employees have already joined our team, and 3 more Titan clients have signed with us, specifically requesting you as project manager. The article mentioned that several former Titan workers had been recruited by competitors, taking their expertise and client relationships with them. No names were listed, but I recognized the pattern. When companies fail due to corrupt leadership, good workers find better opportunities. Miguel Santos was back to full-duty, complete recovery, working for a construction company that prioritized safety over shortcuts. His workers' compensation settlement helped cover his daughter's college tuition and physical therapy costs. "What goes around comes around," Neil said. Gary Walsh spent 6 years taking good people for granted. Now he's in federal prison while you're building our government contracts division. I folded the magazine and handed it back. I feel bad for Lisa. Kid got thrown into a situation she wasn't ready for. Lisa will be fine. She's young. She'll learn from this and come back stronger. Gary, on the other hand, Neil shrugged. Hard to feel sorry for someone who threw away good people to promote family. A year later, I was driving through Houston on business when I stopped for lunch at a diner near the construction management school. Lisa Walsh was sitting alone in a corner booth, reviewing structural engineering textbooks. She looked up when I approached. "Mr. Henderson, what are you doing here?" "Business meeting with Harris County about courthouse expansions." "Mind if I sit?" She gestured to the empty seat. Lisa looked older, more serious. The textbook was Advanced Concrete Design and Load Calculations. Back in school, master's program in structural engineering. She smiled ruefully. "Figured I should actually learn what I was supposed to be supervising before I try management again. That's smart. Proper training prevents costly mistakes." "I wanted to thank you," Lisa said, "for how you handled everything. You could have destroyed my career completely, but you focused on the real problems. You were in an impossible situation. Your father put you in a position you weren't qualified for, then expected you to succeed without proper preparation. Dad still blames you for everything, says you sabotaged the company to get revenge for not getting promoted." I sipped my coffee. "What do you think?" Lisa closed her textbook. "I think I was 24 years old with a degree and no real experience. I think Dad gave me responsibilities I wasn't ready for because I was family. And I think you spent 6 years earning a promotion that should have been yours." We sat in comfortable silence for a moment. "I'm sorry about how everything went down," Lisa said. "You deserved better. Miguel deserved better. All the workers deserved better. Mistakes happen. The important thing is learning from them." Lisa nodded. "I heard you're doing well at Apex. Diana Foster mentioned you're managing 3 major federal projects now. We are. Good safety record. Happy clients, workers who trust management to protect them. That's how construction should work. I'm hoping to earn an internship with a firm like yours when I graduate. Start at the bottom, learn the right way this time. Send me your resume when you're ready. Apex always needs qualified people who understand that safety isn't negotiable." I paid for both our lunches and shook Lisa's hand before leaving. She was a good kid who'd learned a hard lesson about the difference between privilege and competence. 6 months later, Gary Walsh was released from federal prison after serving 20 months. He declared bankruptcy, moved to Arizona to live with his sister, and took a job as a construction laborer. The man who once managed million-dollar contracts was now mixing concrete for $18 an hour. Lisa graduated with honors and landed an entry-level position with a respected Houston engineering firm. She spent 3 years learning structural design from the ground up before earning her first supervisory role. Her colleagues knew nothing about her father's scandal. She'd earned their respect through competence and dedication. The daughter learned what the father never understood: that respect and advancement must be earned through skill and integrity, not inherited through family connections. Today, I manage 12 federal construction projects across Texas. Our safety record is perfect. 0 accidents in 18 months. Our crews know that management will always prioritize their well-being over profit margins or schedule pressures. When new project managers join our team, I give them the same advice my father gave me 30 years ago. The people doing the work are the most important people on the job site. Protect them, respect them, and they'll build you something that lasts. I still wear my father's old hard hat to every job site. The leather is cracked now, held together with electrical tape, but it reminds me why I do this work. Not for the money or the title, but for the guys like Miguel Santos who trust me to keep them safe. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's building something better while they destroy themselves. Gary Walsh spent years cutting corners, promoting incompetent family, and stealing from workers' pensions. In the end, his own corruption brought him down. I didn't have to sabotage Gary Walsh. I just had to document his failures and let the system work. O'Shea, Department of Labor, federal prosecutors, they all did their jobs when presented with clear evidence of wrongdoing. The hard hat sits on my desk now, next to photos of completed projects and safety awards. 30 years of honest work protecting American workers. Some legacies are worth preserving. Some foundations are built to last. Because at the end of the day, the work isn't about the buildings you construct. It's about the standards you refuse to compromise.